Alex Chen was 3 hours into diagnosing the power distribution failures on a Centauri freighter when the emergency alarms cut through the steady background hum of Outpost Kepler-7's repair facility. The distinctive pattern of alerts indicated a severely damaged vessel requesting emergency docking, and from the urgency in the docking master's voice over the comm system, this wasn't a routine mechanical problem that could wait for a scheduled appointment. Alex wiped his hands on his work coveralls and immediately responded to the emergency channel that patched directly to his workshop. "Chen here. What's the situation?" The docking master's voice carried unusual tension. "We've got an incoming vessel that's barely maintaining propulsion and life support. Design is completely unfamiliar, not matching any ship configurations in our database. The pilot is communicating and requesting emergency repair services, but we're flying blind here on whether our facilities can even interface with their technology. This is your call, Alex." Alex made his decision immediately based on years of experience with the principle that any vessel that could reach the outpost was built on universal physical laws, which meant its problems could be understood and likely addressed even if the specific technology was unfamiliar. "Dock them in Bay 7. It's got the most flexible power hookups and tool access. I'll assess the situation as soon as they're secured. Alert medical just in case, but tell the pilot we'll do everything we can." Bay 7's observation window gave Alex his first look at the damaged vessel as it limped into position under the docking master's careful guidance. And what he saw was unlike anything in his 15 years of engineering experience. The ship was roughly the size of a small human courier vessel, but its design principles were completely foreign. Organic curves where human ships had angular efficiency, materials that seemed to shift subtly in appearance as if they were semi-reactive to their environment, and propulsion systems that didn't match any of the standard fusion, antimatter, or exotic matter drives Alex knew. More immediately concerning, the ship showed obvious severe damage. Hull breaches that had been hastily sealed with what looked like emergency patch material, scorch marks suggesting weapons fire or serious system failures, and portions of the exterior that were simply gone, exposing internal structures never meant to be visible. The docking process took longer than usual as the pilot struggled with clearly compromised maneuvering systems, but eventually, the vessel secured and pressurized connections were established. Alex approached the airlock with professional caution mixed with genuine curiosity about what kind of being piloted such an unusual ship. When the inner airlock door cycled open, he got his answer in a way that made him momentarily forget his engineering assessment in simple human reaction to encountering something beautiful and alien. The woman who emerged was tall, nearly 7 feet, with an elegant build that suggested both strength and grace. Her skin carried patterns that seemed to glow from within, shifting through subtle shades of blue and silver in ways that Alex's engineering mind immediately recognized as bioluminescent, but which also registered aesthetically as striking. Her eyes were large and multifaceted in structure, suggesting she could perceive across a wider spectrum than human vision. She wore form-fitting attire that was clearly functional rather than decorative, marked with symbols Alex didn't recognize but which looked official or possibly military. Most immediately relevant to Alex's professional concern, she looked exhausted and stressed, her luminescent patterns showing colors that even he could read as distress signals despite having no background in whatever species she represented. The translation technology that humanity had adopted since joining the wider galactic community kicked in as she spoke, rendering her words into English with only slight mechanical overtones. "I am Lyria of the Shendar. My vessel has sustained critical damage during hostile encounter and requires immediate repair capability. I can provide appropriate compensation for services rendered according to standard galactic commerce protocols. Please, I must reach my destination with urgency. Lives are dependent on successful completion of my mission." Alex's professional mode reasserted itself despite his initial struck reaction to her appearance. "I'm Alex Chen, chief engineer for this facility. Let me do a comprehensive damage assessment on your vessel, and I'll give you an honest evaluation of what I can fix, what it will take, and whether it's even possible given our equipment and my knowledge base. I won't lie to you about capabilities or costs. If I can't fix it, I'll tell you straight rather than waste your time and money." Lyria's luminescent patterns shifted to colors that might have indicated approval or relief, though Alex couldn't be certain. "That directness is valued in Shendar culture. I accept your proposed approach. Please proceed with your assessment." Alex spent the next 4 hours conducting the most thorough diagnostic work of his career, and what he found was simultaneously impressive and daunting in ways that pushed his engineering knowledge to its limits. The Shendar vessel was built using principles that were clearly more sophisticated than standard human engineering. Its propulsion system operated on physics Alex could barely conceptualize, involving what looked like controlled exotic matter interactions. Its power generation was elegantly efficient in ways human fusion drives couldn't match, and its structural materials had properties he'd never encountered, somehow being simultaneously stronger than titanium composites and more flexible than advanced polymers. But impressive technology didn't change the fundamental reality that the ship was severely damaged across multiple critical systems. The propulsion core had what looked like fractures in components that seemed essential to its exotic physics operations, meaning he couldn't just replace them with human equivalents without understanding the underlying principles. The power distribution network was compromised in literally dozens of locations throughout the vessel, requiring extensive rewiring or bypass solutions. The hull breaches needed patching with materials that could interface properly with the Shendar alloys, which had properties Alex's standard repair materials wouldn't match. And most concerning, the life support systems were failing in ways that would become critical within days if not addressed. Lyria had been maintaining minimal functionality through what looked like constant manual intervention, but that wasn't sustainable. It was the kind of comprehensive damage that would normally require a specialized shipyard, with weeks of dedicated work and access to specific technologies and materials. Alex had neither the facilities nor, given Lyria's stated urgency, the time. But he also had 15 years of experience improvising solutions with whatever was available, and he'd never met an engineering problem he couldn't at least partially address if given creative freedom to work around limitations. He returned to where Lyria was waiting in the docking facility's office area, clearly anxious for his assessment despite maintaining composed external bearing. Alex laid out the situation with characteristic honesty. "Your ship is in bad shape. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Under normal circumstances, I'd recommend towing it to a proper shipyard that specializes in advanced alien technology, preferably one with actual Shendar engineering expertise. But you said time is critical, and realistically, the nearest facility that might have relevant experience is weeks away, even if your ship was fully functional. So if you need repairs done quickly, here's what I can offer. I can improvise solutions using human technology and materials to patch, bypass, or jury-rig your systems. It won't be elegant. It definitely won't be what your original designers intended, and the efficiency won't match your ship's optimal performance. But I can make it functional enough to get you where you need to go safely, after which you can pursue proper restoration at facilities with actual Shendar engineering knowledge." Lyria studied him with those large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to be analyzing him on multiple levels simultaneously. When she spoke, her tone carried assessment rather than hostility. "You are claiming capability to repair advanced Shendar technology despite admitting you have no prior experience with our engineering principles or access to appropriate materials. That suggests either remarkable confidence in your abilities or potentially dangerous overestimation of your competence. How can you be certain you can achieve functional repairs rather than creating additional problems through inappropriate interventions? Alex appreciated the direct challenge. It was a fair question that deserved honest answer. I can't give you absolute certainty because engineering in novel situations never comes with guarantees. But I can tell you I've been doing this work for 15 years. I've successfully repaired vessels from 7 different species using improvised approaches, and I've never had a ship leave my facility in worse shape than it arrived. Your technology is more advanced than what I usually work with, but the fundamental engineering principles are universal. Energy has to flow, structures have to maintain integrity under stress, and life support has to provide appropriate atmospheric conditions. I can work with those universal requirements even if the specific implementation is unfamiliar. What I'm offering is functional repairs that will let you complete your mission safely, not perfect restoration to original specifications. Lyria considered his explanation in silence for what felt like a long time to Alex, her luminescent patterns cycling through colors he couldn't interpret. Finally, she spoke with decision in her tone. I accept your assessment and your proposed approach. I have limited alternatives given time constraints and the urgency of my mission. What compensation do you require for this work? Alex provided a price estimate that was fair by outpost standards, enough to cover the materials he'd need to purchase or fabricate, compensation for the intensive time the work would require, but not taking advantage of her desperate situation to inflate costs. Some engineers at frontier outposts were known for price gouging, but Alex had always believed that integrity mattered more than short-term profit, and that reputation for honest dealing was more valuable than any single inflated payment. Lyria agreed to the terms without negotiation and immediately transferred credits through Galactic banking systems, demonstrating both that she had resources and that she trusted his stated pricing. When can you begin? She asked with urgency evident beneath her composed bearing. I started the moment I finished my diagnostic, Alex replied. I've already ordered materials from the outpost suppliers that will be delivered to my workspace within the hour. I'll be working on your ship essentially continuously until it's functional, probably 70 to 80-hour stretches with minimal sleep breaks. Given the scope of damage, I'm estimating 7 to 10 days to complete repairs that will make your ship safe and functional for your mission. Is that timeline acceptable given your constraints? Lyria's patterns shifted to colors that Alex was beginning to associate with approval or gratitude. Though he was aware he was probably missing nuanced meanings, he lacked cultural context to interpret. That timeline is acceptable and faster than I had feared might be possible. I am grateful for your willingness to prioritize this work. Alex began what would become the most technically challenging and intellectually stimulating repair job of his career, and it quickly became apparent that success would require more than just his engineering skills. It would require genuine collaboration with Lyria to bridge the gap between human and Shendar technology. The first major challenge came with the propulsion core, where Alex needed to understand the basic operating principles well enough to know what he could modify or bypass without causing catastrophic failures. He explained his understanding to Lyria. Near as I can tell, your propulsion system works by creating controlled instabilities in exotic matter configurations, which generates the thrust. The damaged components seem to be responsible for maintaining the stability parameters. I can't replace them with anything equivalent, but I think I can create a bypass using human fusion technology that provides the energy input your system needs, while adding human control systems to maintain the stability parameters through different mechanisms. It's crude compared to your original design, but it should work. Lyria listened carefully before responding with technical corrections that demonstrated she had substantial engineering knowledge herself. Your understanding of the core principles is approximately correct, though you are missing several critical factors about how the exotic matter configurations interact with the ship's structural field generators. If you bypass the damaged components as you describe, you will create harmonic resonances that will tear your bypass system apart within minutes of activation. However, if we modify your approach to include dampening oscillations in these specific frequency ranges, she proceeded to explain adjustments that Alex would never have identified on his own, and together, they developed a hybrid solution that married Shendar physics with human engineering in ways neither could have achieved independently. This pattern repeated across every major system Alex worked on. He would propose solutions based on his engineering experience. Lyria would point out why those approaches wouldn't work given Shendar technology principles. And together, they would iterate until finding approaches that satisfied both functional requirements and technical constraints. Alex found himself intellectually challenged in ways he hadn't experienced in years, forced to think beyond his established frameworks and to integrate completely foreign concepts into his problem-solving approach. The work was intense and exhausting, but it was also genuinely engaging in ways that pure human engineering rarely was for Alex anymore. He'd become so skilled with human technology that most repairs were routine, following established procedures without requiring creative thinking. Working on Lyria's ship was different. Every problem required novel solutions. Every system demanded that he understand new principles and develop new approaches. And working with Lyria herself was surprisingly enjoyable despite the stress and time pressure. She was clearly brilliant, able to explain complex Shendar engineering concepts in ways that Alex could grasp and apply. But beyond her technical knowledge, she was also good company during the long hours they spent working together. They fell into comfortable rhythms of collaboration, Alex working on physical repairs while Lyria monitored systems and provided real-time feedback about how his changes were affecting the ship's overall functionality, both of them problem-solving together when unexpected complications arose. During brief breaks when they were waiting for materials to cure or systems to calibrate, they talked about topics beyond just the immediate technical work. Alex learned about Lyria's mission. She was transporting medical supplies and evacuation coordinates to a Shendar colony that had been cut off from their communication network due to spatial anomalies in that region of space. The colony was facing a disease outbreak that would become critical within 2 weeks if they didn't receive the supplies and information Lyria was carrying. She'd been the only pilot willing to attempt the dangerous route through the anomaly regions, and she'd encountered hostile forces that had damaged her ship before she managed to escape into this region of space where the hostiles didn't operate. Understanding the stakes made Alex even more committed to completing the repairs successfully and quickly. This wasn't just about fixing a broken ship. It was about enabling a rescue mission that could save hundreds or thousands of lives. He extended his already long working hours, sometimes going 20 hours straight before exhaustion forced him to take a rest break. Lyria noticed his dedication and seemed both appreciative and concerned. "You are pushing yourself to exhaustion in service of my mission. This level of dedication is admirable, but also potentially counterproductive if fatigue causes errors in your work or injuries to yourself." "I'll manage," Alex assured her with tired smile. "I've worked brutal schedules before, and honestly, the work is interesting enough that it keeps me engaged despite the fatigue. Plus, knowing that people are depending on getting your ship fixed provides pretty strong motivation to push through tiredness. I'll sleep after we get your propulsion system fully operational. That's the critical path right now." As days progressed and Alex made steady progress through the repair checklist, he found himself increasingly aware of Lyria not just as a client or a collaborative partner, but as a person he was coming to genuinely like and respect. She was competent and intelligent, obviously, but she was also thoughtful, expressing gratitude for his work in ways that felt genuine rather than perfunctory. She helped where she could, not just with technical input but also with practical assistance, bringing him food during long work sessions, organizing his tools when he was too focused to maintain his usual tidy workspace, even learning to use some of his human equipment so she could assist with simpler tasks that freed his time for more complex problems. By the end of the first week, they developed what felt like genuine friendship built on mutual respect and shared challenges. Alex found himself looking forward to their conversations during breaks, learning about Shendar culture and sharing stories about his own background and his path to this frontier outpost. Lyria seemed equally interested in understanding human perspectives and approaches, asking thoughtful questions about why Alex had chosen engineering and why he worked at a rough frontier outpost rather than in more comfortable and prestigious positions he was clearly qualified for. The propulsion core breakthrough came on day 8, when they finally got the hybrid system stable and functional. It wasn't elegant. Alex's human components looked crude bolted alongside the sleek Shendar technology. But it worked, generating thrust within acceptable parameters and maintaining stability without the catastrophic resonances Lyria had warned about. They both felt genuine satisfaction at solving the most difficult technical challenge, and Alex noticed Lyria's luminescent patterns showing colors that even he could tell indicated happiness and relief. By day 10, all critical repairs were complete. The hull was sealed with composite patches that approximated the strength of original materials. Life support was fully functional using a hybrid of Shendar and human atmospheric management. Power distribution was restored through creative bypass solutions, and the propulsion system was operational at about 70% of optimal efficiency, but sufficient for Lyria's needs. Alex conducted comprehensive system tests to verify everything was functioning within safe parameters, and Lyria ran her own checks using Shendar diagnostic protocols. Everything checked out. The ship was space-worthy and capable of completing her mission. Standing together in the docking bay looking at the repaired vessel, both of them exhausted but satisfied with what they'd accomplished, Alex felt unexpected reluctance about Lyria's impending departure. Over 10 days of intensive collaboration, he'd come to genuinely enjoy her company and their partnership. She was the most intellectually engaging person he'd worked with in years, and he was surprised to realize he'd miss her presence. Lyria seemed to be experiencing something similar based on her patterns and her unusually hesitant speech. "You have accomplished something remarkable, Alex Chen. You took a vessel built with technology you had never encountered and made it functional through skill, creativity, and dedicated effort." Though he was far from expert in reading Shendar emotional displays, she stood in the center of his workshop for a moment as if gathering her thoughts before speaking. "Alex Chen, I must speak with you regarding matters of significant cultural importance to Shendar people. May I have your time and attention for this conversation?" "Of course," Alex replied, giving her his full focus and gesturing toward the seating area in his workshop, where he sometimes met with clients to discuss technical matters in more comfortable setting than standing in the main work floor. They both sat, and Alex waited patiently for Lyria to begin, respecting that she'd indicated this conversation carried cultural weight that deserved appropriate gravity. Lyria began with clear effort to provide context for what she was about to say. "In Shendar culture, when someone provides aid of the magnitude you have provided to me, aid that required personal sacrifice, extraordinary skill, and enabled me to fulfill a mission that will preserve lives, a debt is created that goes beyond simple financial compensation. This is not debt in a burdensome or negative sense, but rather recognition that you have earned claim on my gratitude and my respect that must be properly acknowledged through appropriate reciprocal action." Alex listened carefully, aware this was important to Lyria but uncertain where the conversation was heading. She continued, "The traditional Shendar response to such debt is for the recipient of aid to offer themselves to their benefactor, to offer their service, their loyalty, their companionship for a period of time that properly honors the magnitude of the assistance received. This offering is not obligation or servitude in any negative sense, but rather voluntary gift of partnership and trust, acknowledgement that you have earned meaningful place in my life through your exceptional aid. She paused, her patterns shifting through colors that looked to Alex like they indicated vulnerability mixed with determination. I am offering myself to you, Alex Chen, in accordance with Shendar tradition for honoring deep debt. If you accept this offering, I would become your companion and partner for a period we would mutually determine, sharing living space, providing assistance with your work or life as appropriate, offering emotional and physical companionship if mutually desired. This is not prostitution or servitude despite how it might sound through translation of cultural concepts. It is offering to integrate our lives temporarily in recognition of the bond created through our shared challenges and your dedicated service. Alex felt his mind racing to process this completely unexpected proposition. He was simultaneously attracted to the idea. He genuinely enjoyed working with Lyria and found her compelling on multiple levels, and deeply uncertain about the ethical implications. Lyria, I appreciate the cultural context you're providing, and I'm honored that you're making this offer. But I need to understand some things clearly. First, is this something you personally want to do, or is it more about fulfilling cultural obligation you feel you must meet regardless of personal preference? Lyria's response was immediate and emphatic. Shendar do not make such offerings purely from cultural obligation. Our traditions provide framework and language for the offering, but whether to actually make it remains personal choice based on genuine regard and respect. I am offering because I have come to value you during our time working together. I respect your competence, your integrity, your dedication, and your approach to challenges. Our collaboration was intellectually engaging and personally enjoyable for me. The cultural framework gives me structure for expressing what I genuinely feel, that you have earned meaningful place in my regard, and that I would welcome opportunity to know you better and to contribute to your life as you have contributed to mine. Alex found himself genuinely moved by her directness and honesty, which aligned well with his own preference for straightforward communication. But he still had concerns. I'm attracted to this idea. I'll be honest about that. Working with you was the most engaging professional experience I've had in years, and I find you compelling on personal level beyond just the technical collaboration. But I'm concerned about power dynamics here. You feel you owe me a debt, which creates pressure that might make it difficult for you to freely choose whether you actually want this partnership. How can I be certain your offer is genuinely free choice rather than feeling obligated by cultural expectations? That concern demonstrates the integrity I have observed in you, Lyria responded with what looked like approval in her patterns. I cannot provide absolute proof of my internal motivations that would satisfy rigorous philosophical skepticism. But I can tell you that Shendar culture provides options for honoring such debts that do not involve personal offering. I could provide monetary gifts beyond the agreed compensation. I could offer future favors or services. I could publicly acknowledge the debt in ways that enhance your reputation. That I chose personal offering rather than these alternatives reflects my genuine desire for this particular form of connection, not just need to fulfill cultural obligation through whatever means available. She continued. Additionally, you should know that Shendar view such personal offerings as gifts to be treasured, not burdens to be endured. If I did not genuinely wish to spend time with you and integrate our lives temporarily, making this offer would be dishonoring both of us. It would reduce something meant to be meaningful into empty gesture. I would not disrespect either of us in that manner. My offer is genuine reflection of how I value you and what I genuinely desire. Alex sat with this for several long moments, examining his own motivations and concerns. He was attracted to Lyria physically despite species differences, or perhaps partially because of them, given that alien features that might have seemed strange initially had become beautiful to him through their time together. He was attracted to her intellectually and had genuinely enjoyed their collaborative problem-solving. And he was attracted to the idea of having genuine companionship in his somewhat lonely existence at this frontier outpost. But he also wanted to be certain he wasn't taking advantage of cultural frameworks he didn't fully understand. If I accept this offer, what would it actually mean in practical terms? What would our daily life look like, and what would be the expectations on both sides? Lyria explained. The specifics would be determined through mutual discussion and agreement. In its most traditional form, the offering would involve me moving into your living space, sharing your life on a daily basis, providing assistance with your work where appropriate and welcomed, offering emotional support and companionship, and being open to physical intimacy if that develops naturally between us. The duration would typically be defined, perhaps several months to a year, during which time we would be recognized as bonded partners with mutual obligations and considerations. She added, but traditions can be adapted to circumstances. Given that I must depart tomorrow for my mission to the colony, which will require approximately 3 weeks for travel, delivery, and return, we could not begin such partnership immediately. What I am proposing is that, if you are open to this arrangement, I would return after completing my mission, and we would then begin the period of companionship. This would give you time to consider fully whether you wish to accept the offering and to prepare for the adjustments it would require. Alex realized he needed time to think about this decision properly rather than making an impulsive choice based on attraction or flattery. I need some time to consider this carefully. Not because I'm not interested. I genuinely am interested. But because I want to make sure I'm thinking clearly about implications and not just reacting to immediate feelings. Would you be comfortable if I gave you my decision before you depart tomorrow? Lyria's pattern shifted to what Alex read as approval and respect. That approach demonstrates the thoughtfulness I have observed in you. Take whatever time you need to consider properly. I will depart tomorrow morning for my mission regardless of your decision. The colony cannot wait longer, but if you choose to accept my offering, I will return as soon as my mission is completed and we can begin our partnership at that time. If you choose to decline, I will respect your decision, and we will part as friends who accomplished remarkable work together. They spent the rest of that day and evening together, continuing their conversation with increasing openness and honesty about their feelings, their concerns, and their hopes. Alex admitted that he'd been largely isolated at the outpost by choice, having retreated from the social and professional politics of more developed human settlements, but that the isolation was sometimes lonely in ways he didn't fully acknowledge. Lyria admitted that her humanitarian work involved constant travel and temporary connections that left her feeling unmoored without deeper long-term relationships to anchor her existence. Both acknowledged the uncertainty about whether cross-species partnership could work given different biological needs, cultural backgrounds, and life contexts. By the time Lyria prepared to depart the following morning, Alex had worked through his concerns and questions and had reached a decision about her offering. He met her at the docking bay where her repaired ship waited, his expression showing both nervousness about what he was about to say and genuine excitement about the possibility it represented. "I've thought carefully about your offer," Alex began, "and I want you to know that I'm accepting it, but with specific framing that's important to me. I'm not accepting because I think you owe me anything or because I'm entitled to claim on your life because I repaired your ship. I'm accepting because I genuinely enjoyed working with you, because I find you compelling on multiple levels, and because I'd like to explore whether we could build something meaningful together. If you come back after your mission is complete, it will be because we both want to see if we can create partnership built on mutual interest and respect, not because cultural debt requires it. Is that framing acceptable to you? Lyria's luminescent patterns flared with colors that Alex had learned to recognize as indicating happiness and approval, and when she spoke, her voice carried warmth that transcended the mechanical translation. That framing is not only acceptable but preferred. You have honored both your own values and mine by making that distinction explicit. I will return as soon as my mission is complete, not to fulfill obligation, but because I genuinely wish to explore what partnership between us might become. They shared a moment of connection that felt significant despite the brief duration of their acquaintance, both aware they were choosing something unprecedented and uncertain, but also something that felt right in ways that transcended logic or practical calculation. Lyria departed on her mission, and Alex spent the following 3 weeks simultaneously continuing his normal repair work at the outpost and preparing for Lyria's return in practical and emotional ways. He adjusted his living quarters to accommodate her different needs, researched Shendar cultural practices and biological requirements so he could be a better partner, and examined his own hopes and fears about embarking on a cross-species relationship that would certainly face challenges and likely face opposition from both human and Shendar communities. When Lyria returned 3 weeks later, her mission successfully completed and her ship functioning well despite the hybrid nature of its repair, they began the process of actually building the partnership they'd committed to. The initial weeks were filled with adjustments as Lyria moved into Alex's living space, and they negotiated the practical realities of sharing life together. There were cultural differences that created complications. Shendar had different sleep cycles than humans, different dietary needs that required Alex to learn entirely new approaches to food preparation, different concepts of personal space and privacy that required explicit discussion and compromise. Lyria's luminescent patterns, which Alex had initially found beautiful but mysterious, became a language he learned to read with increasing accuracy, allowing him to perceive her emotional states and reactions even when her words or actions were culturally filtered. But despite the challenges, the partnership developed into something genuinely meaningful. They fell into comfortable rhythms of shared life. Mornings where Lyria assisted Alex with complex repairs that benefited from her advanced engineering knowledge. Afternoons where they pursued individual interests while enjoying companionable presence. Evenings where they talked about philosophy and culture and shared experiences from their respective backgrounds. Physical intimacy developed gradually and carefully, both of them navigating the awkwardness and uncertainty of cross-species physical connection with patience and humor and genuine desire to find ways to connect that worked for both of them. Lyria proved to be valuable presence at the outpost beyond just their personal relationship. Her diplomatic skills helped resolve conflicts between the outpost's diverse transient population that the human administrators had struggled to address. Her engineering knowledge made Alex's repair facility more capable of handling advanced alien technology that had previously been beyond their capacity. And her humanitarian work, which she continued to pursue on periodic missions that required her to leave the outpost for weeks at a time, inspired others at the outpost to think more broadly about their role in the wider galactic community. But the partnership also faced genuine challenges that required conscious effort to overcome. There were moments when cultural differences created real conflict, when Shendar directness felt cruel to Alex's more emotionally oriented human communication style, when his need for emotional reassurance felt excessive and burdensome to Lyria's more independently oriented cultural framework. They had arguments that were sometimes heated, moments where both questioned whether their differences were too fundamental to overcome. But they worked through these conflicts through honest communication, through willingness to compromise and adapt, through recognition that building something meaningful across vast cultural divides required effort and patience from both partners. The external pressures were also significant. Some humans at the outpost viewed their relationship with suspicion or prejudice. unable to see past species difference to recognize the genuine partnership underneath. Some of the Shendar vessels that passed through the outpost carried crew members who criticized Lyria's choice to bond with a human, viewing it as abandoning Shendar cultural values, or suggesting she had somehow failed to find appropriate partnership within her own species. Both Alex and Lyria faced pressure from their respective communities to end the relationship, and they had to decide whether what they were building together was strong enough to withstand external disapproval and prejudice. The question of whether their partnership would transition from temporary arrangement to permanent commitment became increasingly relevant as months stretched into a year. Lyria's original offering had been framed with traditional Shendar expectation of defined duration, typically several months to perhaps a year, after which both parties would be considered to have fulfilled their mutual obligations and could part with honor if they chose. But as they approached that timeline, both of them recognized that what they'd built had become far more than fulfilling cultural requirements. It had become genuine love and partnership that neither wanted to end simply because enough time had passed to satisfy traditional expectations. They had extended serious conversation about making their partnership permanent, which involved complex questions about practical arrangements and long-term plans. Would they continue living at Outpost Kepler 7, or would they relocate somewhere that provided better opportunities or less isolation? How would they balance Alex's commitment to his engineering work with Lyria's humanitarian missions that required extended travel? Did they want children? And how would that even work given cross-species biological incompatibility that would require advanced genetic and medical intervention? These conversations took place over weeks, with both of them being honest about their hopes and concerns, and their genuine uncertainties about what permanent cross-species partnership would mean for their lives. Ultimately, they decided to formalize their partnership through ceremonies that honored both human and Shendar traditions, witnessed by friends from both species who had come to respect their relationship despite initial skepticism. It was small, intimate gathering rather than large formal ceremony, reflecting their preference for meaning over spectacle. The Shendar elements included ritual exchanges of personal objects that symbolized trust and mutual obligation, formal declarations of partnership witnessed by Shendar community members who could testify to the legitimacy of their bond. The human elements included spoken vows where both expressed their commitment to each other and their intentions to build shared life together, exchange of rings as physical symbols of their permanent connection. The ceremony concluded with both human and Shendar blessing traditions, and when they were formally recognized as bonded partners by both communities, the response from witnesses was predominantly positive despite the unprecedented nature of their cross-species union. The years that followed brought both the rewards and challenges inherent in any committed partnership, amplified by the cross-species nature of their bond. They faced ongoing prejudice from both sides, humans who couldn't accept that one of their own had chosen alien partnership, Shendar who viewed the bonding as cultural betrayal or biological impossibility. They navigated the practical complications of maintaining relationship, when Lyria's humanitarian work required extended absences and Alex's commitment to his repair facility tied him to the outpost. They dealt with biological and cultural differences that never completely disappeared even as they learned to accommodate and appreciate them. But they also built something remarkable together. Their engineering partnership became known throughout the frontier as the most capable cross-species collaboration available for complex repairs that integrated multiple technological approaches. They took on the most challenging cases, vessels that combined incompatible technologies in ways that stumped other engineers, because their partnership had taught them to bridge different engineering philosophies and find functional solutions that honored both approaches. They became advocates for cross-species partnerships more broadly, sharing their story publicly through interviews and speaking engagements, challenging prejudices on both sides, and inspiring others to consider relationships across species boundaries. The final scene of the story shows them several years into their permanent partnership, working together on yet another damaged alien vessel in Alex's expanded repair facility at Outpost Kepler 7. Their movements are coordinated through years of working together, their communication a seamless blend of words, and understood signals and Lyria's luminescent patterns that Alex now reads with perfect fluency. They're discussing a particularly complex propulsion problem, and their solution involves creativity from both traditions. Human improvisational engineering married to Shendar theoretical elegance, creating hybrid approach that neither culture would develop independently. When they finish the repair and step back to assess their work, they share a moment of quiet satisfaction that encompasses both the professional achievement and the life they've built together. Lyria's patterns show colors that Alex knows mean contentment, love, and sense of purpose fulfilled. Alex wraps his arm around her waist in gesture of affection that they've adapted to accommodate their height difference and different body structures. And they both understand that what began as simple repair job, human engineer helping damaged alien vessel in crisis, became something far more significant. Partnership built on mutual respect, cultural bridge that demonstrated love, could transcend vast differences, and living proof that sometimes the most meaningful connections come from choosing to help someone in need without expectation of reward, then being brave enough to accept genuine partnership when it's offered with trust and respect across the impossible distance between different worlds and different ways of being.